So hello, a very warm welcome to the VR show, the show which talks about all the major football leagues in detail. Today we have Mr. Daniel G back again on our show, and today hopefully we can talk on his book, which we missed out last time. Among everything and his tight schedule, we missed out the book, which probably was something for which I was inspired to talk to him more about. So first, I'll begin by asking you, how are you, and what have you been doing? It's been like almost 2 months we last spoke, and yeah, there's a vaccine doing the rounds now compared to back then when it was more uncertain. How is everything there, and how what are you doing?
Yeah, well, as we speak, it's sort of approaching the last few days of the the January transfer window. Um, not as busy on a range of transfers as I usually am. I think you've seen Real Madrid, Barcelona, a lot of other clubs announce obviously over a short period of time, the losses and potential debts that they have. I think that's sort of compounded in the rest of the market. Um, but there's lots of things going on. There's sort of lots of regulatory issues. There's lots of contractual issues. There's still lots of disputes. There's still, can we get the season finished? Issues to do with player welfare, things to do with the European Super League, things to do with cost controls. There's and as the show's title is, there's always VAR issues going on as well at the best of times. So yeah, lots of interesting work. We've got things like the new FIFA agents regulations coming in at some point over the next year or 18 months, whatever else it might be. You've got the agents wanting to challenge the FIFA capping of the commission fees. And I'm probably missing out on tons of different things, concussion issues. um, so yeah, lots of interesting stuff in the sports and football world generally. And you can see what's sort of happening. A lot is pivoting towards the digital. I'm saying things that lots of people already know. We saw a brilliant documentary from actually a client and a friend of ours, uh, Hector Bellerin's documentary on his recovery from his ACL injury, which has done incredibly well on across YouTube, sort of bypassing the general sort of national broadcasters and going straight into the sort of B2C market to a degree. So I'm just picking out some smallish examples of different things, but yeah, there's a lot going on right now.
Definitely, and if anyone of our viewers want to stay up there, you can go on to Daniel's YouTube channel. I think they keep posting something. I think you all did the Super League recently with Omar. I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday, or at least
Yes.
I was introduced to that. So yeah, so he keeps putting up content. You can go and check his workout. It's amazing. Personally, I follow almost whenever I can. So I'll touch on the book very first thing. And you
Mm.
wrote a book, Done Deal, and not everyone gets to write a book, and especially about football, which probably many of them have the interest, knowledge. How did that happen? How did Done Deal happen?
Well, it came about just like it's the same for all of us that are interested and have a curiosity or a passion for a particular industry. And mine's been sport, and obviously particularly football. Growing up as a Liverpool fan, and I had, over the course of university and my law degree, just tried to take on sports and courses involving topics that cross over into the sports sector. If that was contractual matters, if it was employment, if it was EU law involving the Bosman case, or competition law involving particular changes to the transfer system, etc. And during my master's year, I spent a year writing a master's research paper on competition law and football broadcasting rights. I started writing in law journals, and to cut a long story short, then I started, probably the best part of 20 years ago now, or 15 years ago, a blog on my own website. And that sort of just iterated and iterated and evolved into lots of issues around third-party ownership, around FFP, around football transfers, around employment contracts, and lots of different disputes. And one of my journalist pals said, you should meet his football book agent, because you should just make a compendium of all your blogs and turn it into a book. So the short story is, then after that, after putting together a book proposal and doing a few sample chapters, and quite a lot of toing and froing, I got the offer, and then I had to sort of work out what I was going to write. I'd had to sort of, some basis of what I wanted to actually write and how I wanted to do it. But even now, we're talking about a book that was published in 2018, and at some point soon, because so much has gone on in the football world, you could probably write a book on COVID, never mind everything that's gone on. Hopefully in the next few years, I might be able to spend a bit of time just updating it, and putting in all of the new issues and in things that have impacted over the football world. But for the time being, hopefully, even if some of the examples are 2 or 3 years old now, the same impact applies, which is hopefully a good explanation of a lot of the ways in which the football ecosystem knits together and how the different elements all work in practice.
So I have not read a book. I have ordered it. It takes around 1 month to come here because it comes directly from UK, because you don't have the book here selling out in
Mm.
any platform. So it takes, and because of the COVID thing, it's taking much longer because there are, I think, lesser flights going to and fro, especially to UK. And it's it's not somewhere you want to go right now. And like, I wanted to ask about the book. Is it just a holistic approach over and on the various topics that you have touched upon, or is it your own personal experience?
Yeah, it's a great one, because I think it's funny. Some of the comments that I don't, not that I read all the comments on social media or on the reviews about whether the book's any good or not, but every now and then I'm just interested to try and get constructive or otherwise feedback. And the thing that I think people have a misconception about is that because I'm a lawyer and because I have been lucky enough to work on a lot of high profile deals, that suddenly I'm going to be dishing all the gossip about what actually went on in those deals and how much they earned and what was the problems and who was a prima donna and what issues happened, and that sort of juicy stuff that in a way maybe the more the journalists can report because they get provided that information from particular sources. Simply because I can't do that, because no footballer or client would ever work with me again if I told everybody all the juicy stuff that happened. All of the things that I try and put in the book, over lots of things, if it's player contracts or if it's player transfers or if it's social media or if it's disputes or if it's managers being sacked, or if it's how FFP works or if it's how third party ownership issues cropped up or the ownership of football clubs or whatever else it might be. It's all the stuff that's out there in the public domain, but with my twist in that I've seen it, I've lived it, I've been there to a degree, and I can sort of try and explain the nuances behind the headlines of what actually may have gone on and what actually happens in practice, and whether agents actually are all sharks or actually the exact opposite. A lot of them are very good at what they do, are well networked. There's a high opportunity cost and a high instability in the market for players and for agents moving on. So I think what I wanted to try and do was give a bit more of a realistic view of busting some of the myths about the football industry. Not that I'm suddenly giving away some crazy statistic that everyone be like, oh my God, but it's actually like, clubs pay transfer fees in installments, shock horror. Players don't pay their agents, their clubs do, shock horror. Players can get big tax bills if they don't pay attention to particular things. And also just try and explain that, most agents aren't usually as wealthy as everyone thinks they are, or that clubs actually sometimes have to shoulder their burden for the blame for certain things that happen, but because everyone's always loyal to the club, no one's ever usually loyal to the player. And then when loyalty gets thrown at the player, it's somehow seen as a one-way street. So I maybe just wanted to even up the playing field for actually trying to understand, not necessarily what always goes on, but why it goes on and why things happen in particular ways, rather than just reading something and accepting it as the gospel for what it is.
Definitely. And like, despite being like so politically correct in every, when you're writing the book, not trying to give out juicy bit for me which may cause trouble to someone or the other, did you still face any confrontation from anyone? Okay, why did you write about me or something?
Well, I mean, the thing is that I tried to do in a lot of ways is to try and put more of a positive spin on the industry. So, the point is, and someone said it, and they're totally right, is, a lot of my work comes from players and agents. So I would be stupid to be telling everyone in my book that I think agents are cowboys and that players are prima donnas. I'm not going to obviously be as controversial and as outspoken as that. But what I wanted to try and do was give that nuance, which is, everyone says players are greedy, but no one really, I think, if they actually put their mind to it and understood it, would actually say, players are giving up an awful lot in their career for the small likelihood of getting to the top and maybe getting 2 or 3 relatively large contracts that are going to have to last them and their family and maybe more of their dependents probably for the entirety of their lives, never mind anything else. So and on the flip side, a lot of agents live a pretty unsecure and insecure lifestyle with, if players can move on after a couple of years or a rep contract or otherwise, you're under the cosh to make sure you, in a positive way, can do what's best for the player and hopefully make some money in the interim. So I didn't really, maybe that was the issue in a way. I didn't get any negative feedback from any of the clients because it wasn't really the book that I was trying to write. The book I was trying to write was to give more of a realistic view of the market. And it's usually because, on the whole, clubs are seen sometimes in a more positive light because they are the bread and butter for the supporters. And usually the scapegoats can be players and agents, and sometimes they, are given into that role in a bit more detail. So it wasn't that there was too much negative feedback. I think the negative feedback, to a degree, was that you haven't really written anything juicy, and everybody knows this already. But in my mind, there's always going to be people that don't necessarily agree with everything you write, and that's absolutely fine. But in the end, people like yourself and others that hopefully will read it and have read it already. What's been lovely, and I think it's important for people to, I don't do it enough, is to sort of, when someone says, well done, Daniel, on your book, I got a lot out of it. I gained lots more knowledge. It's going to help me in my career, or help me with particular things, or I passed this on to so and so because this would be useful for them. Just actually to breathe with it and say, what, that's great that I've been able to help someone develop their skill set and their knowledge to be able to, for them to be able to do something more than they otherwise would have been able to do before. So, making that little bit difference in a very small way, especially at this time, gives me quite a lot of satisfaction.
Definitely, and I think the juicy part will definitely is what all journalists are jumping towards, and yeah, I mean, like they want to sell. I mean, I can get their point of view also, because they will get fired if they don't get the TRPs up. So I'll ask you like two final questions before we wrap it up, and the first one is like, do you see yourself branching out and writing more books, or was it just one off? Okay, I wrote a book where probably I covered everything. You may add some additions or something, and
Mm.
okay, but that is it. Or do you see yourself branching out and writing more books?
Yeah, well, I think you know, I don't class myself as a traditional lawyer in the sense that there's various other things I do. I've got a charity fashion brand that I sit on a couple of charity sports boards. I'm involved in a variety of different things as well. If it's the podcasts or the social media stuff that I do, or YouTube channels, or whatever else it might be too. And an idea that I've had over lockdown for quite a while, even going back to almost a year now, when COVID effectively started, was to try and think about how, because I get a lot of questions on this topic, which is, how did you get in, people wanting to make a career in the entertainment space, if it's football or sport or fashion or TV or film or media, or whatever those passion sectors are that people feel, computer games feel really part of, because it's part of their identity. And so I've been given a lot of thought for quite a while, which is part of the reason I did a YouTube course back in, I think it was March or April time, on So You Want a Career in Sport. And so I took quite a lot out of that and the feedback I got. And over the last about 7 or 8 months, I've actually been trying to write a sort of manuscript on, how you build the invisible skills, knowledge, and network that will hopefully stand you in good stead to get you into the industry that you're more interested to get involved in. So if it's how do you build your knowledge, if it's how do you maintain and develop a network inside your chosen industry, if it's then how do you build on that and try and develop good habits, and if it's also try and working through issues to do with persistence, to do with types of failure or setbacks, to mean that maybe at the moment the job might not be there for you, maybe in 4 years or 5 years it might not be there for you, but what you've got to see is enjoy the process of doing the things that you enjoy doing to put you in the best position maybe later in the line to maybe start a side hustle, or to maybe actually find a job that your skills are now aligned with. So I've been toying with all of these types of, then they're not novel ideas really, but try to put some practical tips and some of my thoughts on my journey and how things have gone well. Sometimes they haven't gone well. Lean on a lot of my clients and contacts that I'm speaking to about their experiences, and then try and just write and finalize like a practical guide to, so you want to get to do something closer to your passion, to your curiosity, to the thing that you're interested in spending time on. How would you start to go about it? And it's not like some magical silver bullet, which is you read this book and you'll be able to become a football agent, or you read this book and you'll be the new fashion king of London. But it's almost like that everyone sees the outcome and no one sees the process. And I just want to actually try and adapt people to be like, if you go along with this process for quite a while because you're actually motivated and you like to do it, you're more likely to get to that outcome or continue on that process because it's something that's developed in you and you don't mind doing it. So it's those type of things. It's a great question, and thanks for asking it, that I've been trying to grapple with a little bit now. And hopefully that's just another little side hustle that I might try and finalize in the next 6 months or so.
And I totally agree with you. Like, I concrete every point that you have said as a side hustle, which probably you don't see it as a something that's happening right now, but may happen in maybe 4 years. You never know. Because I myself am a computer engineer and I'm
Mm.
a cyber security expert, and this is just my side hustle where I don't even get paid for anything I do. It's like I don't even a radio show. I don't get paid, but it may pay off someday. You never know. I mean, like,
Well, I love it
so
because
so yeah.
your idea is like, you reached out to me. We have a chat about football, we have a chat about career and life, but that you're the perfect example of, you want to motivate yourself to do something. The idea isn't like to quit your job and to be like, I'm going to be a YouTube podcaster, radio station host. I can actually do this and do that at the same time. And then you develop things in parallel. So you don't need to take this big risk at the beginning. You just go ahead and prioritize your time, and everybody prioritizes their time accordingly. And that's one of the really interesting things that I'm finding from speaking to people, which is like, okay, so you want to be you want to get into the film and TV, you want to become a filmmaker, or you want to get into television series production. Well, the way you probably don't start is by quitting your job and then just thinking, oh my God, I need to find a job now. It's actually how do you develop the skills in the short term and medium term to take you into those types of areas generally. And I think it's bridging that gap is the really interesting thing. It's like, how do you stay with things, just as you're obviously doing with all of your great work, to make sure that you don't put yourself under too much pressure to be like, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that, or I do want to do this and I do want to do that, so that you get to a good position of maybe it's not going to be your job full time forever, but you can see the passion, the interest, the excitement, and the joy that it brings to me and obviously to you in talking about the things that we enjoy talking about.
So we'll wrap it up with one final football question. So
Yeah.
last time we spoke, and Zlatan was creating a big headlines with the thing. What has happened to that? Has that died down?
Yes. So this
The
was the
FIFA.
FIFA. Yes. Yeah. It's interesting actually, hasn't it? Because it sort of has that. It feels like it has died down a little bit at the moment. And this was obviously the issue to do with image rights, and to do with particular players' images and identities appearing on particular games or particular promotional vehicles, etc. So yeah, it's gone rather quiet for a while, hasn't it, really? But I'm sure, just like anything, at the right time, if there are particular things that crop up, we'll hear more about it at the moment. But I think, the interesting one at the moment, very much that FIFA and UEFA and the confederations are aligned on, is this sort of European Super League idea, and how much legs that's going to have, especially at the time when, the Champions League format and money distributions and broadcasting deals for 2024 is sort of up for renegotiation and negotiations, whether it's just leverage, whether it actually has legs. At a time when we're talking about Madrid and Barca making big losses and having, big historical debt, whether that Super League, where it's rumored that each club would get upwards of £300 million from participating in it, whether that's actually got legs or not. So that's definitely a watch this space at the moment, I think, now.
Definitely, and I would have loved to discuss that, but I think we are running short on time. And if you all want to know more about that, you can head on to Daniel's channel. And I think he made a video, as we discussed earlier yesterday. I think it was released yesterday with Omar. Amazing video, and I think you'll. I think hopefully you take out more videos at a regular interval, because that's something I follow. I follow your channel a lot, and I follow Athletic. I really like the videos what they take out. It's amazing, especially. And Daniel, thank you once again for coming and giving your time during this transfer window. And I wish you all the best for whatever work you're doing, and hope I get to read your book soon, and then I'll say you how it is.
For sure. No, thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much.